Okay. So, so if neurosymbolic AI isn't just, as you say, isn't just a matter of adding rules to large language models, is it possible to create neurosymbolic AI models on top of large language models?
Yes, I think so. As I said, like for specific use cases, large language models can be a very valuable building block for neurosymbolic AI. So if you think about a large language model sort of as a massive semantic association network, it's easy to
Hmm.
see how something like that could be leveraged as one part of a more structured approach to mimicking the process of what a real human or even an organization would do towards when working towards some goal. And we've
Hmm.
already kind of started to see the lines start to blur. So in OpenAI's new O1 model, they've actually attempted to implement a sort of neurosymbolic approach on top of their existing GPT architecture.
Okay.
So they've been a little bit quiet about technical details, but they have revealed that the O1 model was trained by incorporating what's called chain of thought reasoning. So essentially, the language model is first being used to process your prompt to understand what you'd like to accomplish and breaks that down into sub-items. And then each of those sub-items are then processed again by the language model. And that can reflect on the output to ensure that it satisfies your original prompt. So basically, you have the first layer where it breaks down the problem, and then sort of each of those subtasks are tackled. And then you kind of have
Hmm.
a last reflection layer to make sure that things actually fit in together nicely so that you can get a good answer to your question or whatever your prompt was. And that's a really good example of agentic AI.
Okay. Great. Okay. Which, as I said, we'll come back to that in a bit more detail in a moment. But t turning to applications, tell me what some of what are some of the current real world applications of neurosymbolic AI that you're seeing?
Right. So in a sense, I'd say anywhere, really anywhere where we're currently using large language models, there are probably opportunities to use neurosymbolic AI. And how it's going to help is it's going to make things more interpretable, more controllable, et cetera. So for
Hmm.
example, answering really nuanced questions, like what we call multi-hop questions, which do require breaking things down and maybe incorporating different types of information. So for example, if I ask you, what do the most successful market research agencies do to differentiate themselves? That's a tough question. First, you need to know what are the most successful market research agencies, or even how do you define success? And then you need to understand what they're doing and maybe what they're doing versus other companies. So
Yeah.
that's a very tricky question that kind of requires breaking it down, like I said, incorporating various types of information, doing some reflection, and all of that. Uh,
Hmm.
there's lots of other use cases. So for example, knowledge management, especially within big organizations or business intelligence. So being able to represent, all of the knowledge across many, many different individuals in a very condensed and kind of in a manner that's also very conducive to analysis.
Yeah.
Also things like customer support chatbots. So obviously those have been around for a while.
Mm.
And very early on when large language models became in vogue, we started to see those and a lot of them were hallucinating. So neurosymbolic AI, especially incorporating knowledge graphs, is a really good way to reduce or mitigate that hallucination because basically the large language model, yes, it's being used, but it's being used in conjunction with a knowledge graph that's been built specifically from the documentation for whatever that chatbot is supporting.
Okay. So we might all start getting a bit less frustrated with customer support chatbots. That's good news.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe even things like longer term memory. So then being able to reference things that you might have said a while ago or being able to connect the dots. So you're not just processing one request at a time, but being able to actually
Yeah.
connect with what you said previously. Um,
Hmm.
you can do all of that just using a language model, but it's more efficient to represent that as a knowledge graph so that you don't need to kind of incorporate the whole previous conversation and every time you have a new request.